What is going on, world? What's up, YouTube? It's Zero here. Today I'm bringing you guys a brand new episode of the 8 Below Show. Welcome everyone to 8 Below. Thanks for being here, guys, to the best entertainment-related show here on YouTube. And I'm super excited about our episode here today. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, so let's get into it. I've stated on the YouTube channel a number of times, guys, that the horror industry or the horror genre, whether we're talking in gaming or in movies, has a very close place in my heart. And what I wanted to go ahead and do, guys, in this segment of the show is talk about the top 5 scariest games ever made in my personal opinion. Kind of wanted to go through that, guys, give you all my list of the scariest games I've ever played. And look, I haven't played every horror game that's ever come out. I've played, a lot of the AAA games. I've played some of the indie games, but overall, guys, I try to play as many horror games as I possibly can. And with that, guys, let's get right into this thing. And I want to hear your guys' thoughts on what your top 5 scariest games of all time are in the comment section down below. So let's get into it. So coming in, guys, at number 5 is The Last of Us Part 2. And what I'll say is, look, regardless of what people think about The Last of Us in this franchise at this point in time, the current state of The Last of Us, you cannot deny the unnerving and the sheer terror that was certain segments, of course, of The Last of Us Part 2. It was a very, like I said, unnerving experience, to say the least. And we could really put The Last of Us Part 1 in there as well, because both of these experiences had some incredibly unnerving horror elements to them. I thought that The Last of Us Part 2 actually elevated some of the horror elements of the first one. Just some, very close quarter combat with some terrifying elements to it. And I think that The Last of Us Part 2 did a great job of creating this very unnerving environment, to say the least. So for me, guys, at number 5, it's definitely The Last of Us Part 2. And like I said, you could probably really put in there The Last of Us Part 1, but The Last of Us Part 1, I'm going to make more so an honorable mention. Coming in at number 4 for me, guys, is Silent Hill. Now, when I say Silent Hill, there's not really any one particular Silent Hill game that I would say is, scarier than the other. Some of them are obviously scarier than others in the franchise, but I would say just as a franchise, Silent Hill has some terrifying elements to it. I've actually, I'm one of those people who actually liked Homecoming. I've liked some of the elements of that game. I thought there was some pretty terrifying elements to it. I've also looked at some of the older Silent Hills that I used to play, like Silent Hill 2, even Silent Hill back in 1999. These were terrifying experiences in my personal opinion. Now, if you were to ask me which one was probably the scariest, I would probably say Silent Hill 2 was probably the scariest in my opinion in the series, but I thought that Homecoming and some of these others were pretty terrifying as well. So I'm going to give it Silent Hill 2 without a doubt. Coming in, guys, at number 3 is Fear 2. So First Encounter Assault Recon, also known as the Fear franchise, one that we've talked about here on the YouTube channel a number of times, but I would say that Fear 2 kind of took some of the things that worked in Fear 1 and really elevated them in a major way with some of those, terrifying elements to it. A first-person shooter, guys, where you even at times, you have your weapon with you at all times throughout the course of the game, but there's times throughout the course of this game where you just feel helpless, like it's not going to help having any type of weapon and such, which made it just just a terrifying experience in my opinion. I thought that there were, very much so creepy elements to it, to say the least. And like I said, the first Fear I thought did a really good job of kind of setting the stage for what was to come, and then Fear 2 I think took it to another level. Coming in, guys, at number 2, and by the way, guys, these games, they're in no particular order. I've just pretty much kind of made a list of the 5 scariest games I've ever played, and these could really be shuffled. I could make one of these, number 1, and it's hard to say, but these are just the top 5. This isn't in any particular order. But at number 2, guys, is Dead Space. So Dead Space 2 in particular, I believe, was one of the scariest games that I've played, not from the standpoint of just, the entire game is essentially, this, simulator that you're walking through, but there's real tension that is built throughout the course of the game as you're walking through corridors and hallways and such, necromorphs creeping behind you as you turn around and they're like right there behind you and such. Terrifying moments like that where you're by yourself. There's a lot of mystery to your character, Isaac Clarke, and just a very, like I said, a pretty terrifying experience to say the least as you're going through the course of this story. You could say that Dead Space 1, similar to the Fear franchise, kind of set the stage, and then Dead Space 2, I thought, took it to another level in a major way when we're talking about just sheer terror in this game. Absolutely love Dead Space, guys. It's another one of those games that we've talked about a number of times, and one of those franchises we've talked about on the YouTube channel quite a bit. And I got to say that they really did something, and I would love to see a lot of these games, guys, we haven't seen a continuation of in a number of years, that being like the Fear franchise, the Dead Space franchise. I would love to see a continuation moving forward of these franchises, and that also goes for Silent Hill. Coming in at number 1 for me, guys, and I got to say that this number 1 would probably, I have to say, is probably the scariest game I've ever played, that being Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. This was a game, guys, that the entire setting was pretty much, throughout the course of the game, there was just moments, and a lot of moments, really, of just feeling totally helpless, regardless of, where you are, what you have. There were creepy elements to this game from the very start. Once you walk into the house to the very end, guys, where you get out of the house, or do you? But that being said, there were some absolutely terrifying elements and unnerving elements to this game in particular. I just thought that the story building was really well done, where the villains and such were just a very twisted and psychological in many ways in this game. I thought that they did an incredible job making this game, that being Capcom, and I absolutely loved it, guys. It was actually my favorite Resident Evil game to date. I actually had taken the place of Resident Evil 5, which was my favorite in the franchise. This one kind of took it, another step as far as really bringing the horror into everything, kind of getting back to what made Resident Evil so great in the first place. And I hope it continues with Resident Evil Village. It's hard to say at this point, guys, but I'm very excited, to say the least, for the future of this franchise. But Biohazard, guys, from beginning to end, just had so many moments. And I actually streamed the game on Twitch, and there were just moments that you could see, like me jumping out of my skin, guys. I mean, just number of jump scares, a number of moments where you just don't want to walk down certain hallways. You don't want to follow this figure or that, where these creatures are and such. It was just absolutely something that I've never really experienced in all of gaming, guys. And look, these are my top 5 scariest games ever made, in my opinion, guys. I think that they are absolutely terrifying, to say the least. And if you're into the horror genre, guys, I would absolutely try these games out. And some of them are a little bit lighter than others, that being like, maybe Fear's not quite as scary as Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, but they've all got these horror elements that make them a very terrifying experience, to say the least. But with that, guys, those are my top 5 scariest games that I've ever played. What are the scariest games in your opinion? Let me know in the comment section down below. And for more top 5 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. Code Sin is one of the newest games coming out of Tencent, the massive Chinese developer, guys, that owns, or publisher I should say, that owns a number of different companies, that being like Riot Games and Epic Games, and also has, interest as well as owns massive stakes in some of these other big companies and corporations as well in the gaming industry. And with that, Code Sin, in my opinion, guys, from what we saw of like the new games that are coming out from Tencent, this was the most intriguing to me. And what I wanted to go ahead and do is give you guys my top 5 things that I want to see in Code Sin. And when I say we, guys, I'm going to be giving you guys my opinions here. I know some of you may agree, some of you may disagree with what my things are that I want to see in Code Sin. Let me know what yours are in the comment section down below. So let's get into it. So guys, this Code Sin being a cyberpunk styled type of game, Reminds you a lot of elements of Cyberpunk 2077. Of course, it's obviously looks like somewhat of a spiritual successor, or it's kind of taking, a kudos from Cyberpunk 2077, but it definitely has its own flavor. Instead of having more of a realistic feel, it's got more of a toy look, or kind of more of a, animated kind of style that they have with all the vehicles as well as the characters and such. And so the first big thing for me, guys, at number one is one thing I really want out of Code Sin is I want it to be itself. I don't want it to be trying to copy and paste what made Cyberpunk 2077 and what I believe is going to make Cyberpunk 2077 a massive success. I think it's going to be, it needs to be its own thing. Be yourself. Don't try to, kind of copy and paste things from other games within the Cyberpunk style and, try to call them your own. I think they need to have, things that are going to be maybe a little bit similar, but things that are going to be different from the gameplay, the mechanics and things of that nature, I think are really important. So at number one, guys, just be yourself. Number two for me is I want to see a campaign here. Now, from what we know so far, a lot of these things, it doesn't sound like there's most likely going to be a fully fleshed out campaign. Sounds more of like a multiplayer experience. However, it looks like this could be a world that definitely has a campaign, or at least, character missions and such that you get to learn more about the characters. This looks like such a vast and immersive world, similar to that of Cyberpunk 2077, and so I would love to be able to explore it in a major way and be able to kind of learn about these characters and have a fully fleshed out campaign. I think that's going to be really important moving into this next, moving into this title. And, I think that's going to also help separate Tencent's version of Cyberpunk away from CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk. So with that, I just would really like there to be some form of campaign here in, of course, Code Sin. Coming in, guys, at number 3. We alluded to it, that being multiplayer as well as co-op. I think I would love to see multiplayer elements here, which is what this sounds like it's going to mainly be. But I also want to see co-op elements. I want us to be able to, play with our friends, maybe have co-op missions, being able to play some PvE as well as some PvP. I would like there to be a number of different game modes that you're able to play. The customization and such in this game looks pretty, spot on. Like there's just a lot of options here for your characters, as far as, what you're able to do with your character as far as customization goes. So I think that would be awesome, being able to see what your friends are doing and what other people around the world are doing in the multiplayer perspective as well as the co-op. I want to see earnable items as well as maybe some payable items, like the earnable items you can earn within the game and just progressing as you go. And you can kind of show those things off to your friends as well as to other people out there. Coming in, guys, at number 4. I also kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but having that open world setting, being able to explore the world as we want. I want to see a full open world here with Code Sin. I really want to see us be able to dive into this game and be able to explore. Even if we're talking just from a multiplayer perspective, where you can go into the matches and as you please, or if this is going to be kind of like a GTA Online style where you're able to explore and such and do things with your friends. It's hard to say what direction they're going here, but I'd like to have a full open world where we're able to explore, be able to go into shops, go into different places, and do the things that we want, which it looks like there's definitely possibility and potential there if they decided to do that. And then last but not least, guys, at number 5, I want to see this game kind of take some things that have worked from one of Tencent's other games, which is Fortnite, which obviously is Epic Games, but Tencent owns Epic Games. So I'd like to see them take something from Fortnite here with Code Sin, that being multiple updates, consistently evolving the world, not like as drastic as what Epic Games does with Fortnite, but consistently updating and kind of making this game a living, breathing space that we can just kind of dive into, and there's always new things that we can do along the journey of playing Code Sin. And I think that's something that Tencent very well may be looking at doing. I'm hoping that's the case. I think this game has something special written all over it, guys, from a customization perspective, from it just looking different than that of Cyberpunk 2077. I think Cyberpunk 2077 is now going to start almost a new genre, so to speak, of other companies jumping into the cyberpunk space and, making their, kind of doing their version on cyberpunk, similar to what is happening with companies doing their take on, say, Battle Royale and such. So we'll see what happens, guys. But at the end of the day, I just want there to be similarities, but also differences with Code Sin to other, to Cyberpunk 2077 and games like it. And I want this to be a full package deal here. We'll have to wait and see, and I'll give you guys all the updates as more information comes out. Let me know, though, what are the things that you want to see in Code Sin? Let me know in the comment section down below. And for more Code Sin content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. So Ubisoft Forward has concluded, guys, and we got a lot of information about some of these new titles that are coming out, or upcoming titles coming out from none other than Ubisoft. And what I'm really excited about is, of course, one of the games that I've been looking forward to for a while now is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. This is one of my favorite franchises out there, guys. I've been very critical, however, of the past couple of entries in the franchise. And Valhalla, even though it seems like it could be some of the same as what we've had in the past couple of entries in this franchise, there definitely seems to be some differences. Well, some developers, as well as just, reviewers, as well as just, personalities within, YouTube, as well as Twitch and such, got first hands-on experience with the game. And so what I wanted to go ahead and do is talk about everything that we know at this point in time, guys, about Assassin's Creed Valhalla following Ubisoft Forward. So let's get into it. So in an article, guys, that was written by Wes Fenlon of PC Gamer, our first preview shows promise. Assassin's Creed Valhalla wants to be The Witcher 3, but with deeper combat and the occasional climb. I almost dropped my controller in a panic when a nun stopped praying amid a field of corpses, pulled out an axe and charged at me. A couple of hours into my demo, Assassin's Creed Valhalla had finally surprised me. It was a short, vicious fight with the nun deciding my show of strength meant I didn't need killing after all. After a short cutscene, I learned this encounter was a world event, shorter and simpler than a side quest, but also more fun. Because I had no idea it was coming. Completing world events is one way Assassin's Creed Valhalla rewards you skill points to level up your Viking assassin Eivor alongside story missions and side quests. As Ubisoft continues to turn Assassin's Creed into an RPG series, more focus on story and character building and thoughtful narrative choices, it needs many more moments like that one. Now, what I'm going to say, guys, and I've talked about this many times on the YouTube channel, that Assassin's Creed kind of has gone away from what made the series so great in the first place, that being the stealth over action, and they've kind of replaced that with action over stealth, and, or having like stealth elements to it, but more action. And I'm not saying that it's a terrible thing, but it's just felt that it's been more of a, something that they kind of got away from, that being Ubisoft with Assassin's Creed. I'm hoping that they kind of balance it out more in this game, that being Valhalla. But I love some of the things that they're adding here to this game. 3 hours with Valhalla was barely enough to get a feel for this new Assassin's Creed. I can tell it's a giant open world with plenty of the tropes you'd expect from the genre. There are points of interest on your map, vantage points to climb, completion bars to fill up by collecting treasure and finding secrets, or deposits to break open for materials, bits of loot from enemies you can use to upgrade your weapons. And the upgrades and such, from what I've seen, guys, look very expansive. I mean, they have a lot of, skill trees almost, that looks like there is so much stuff that you can like upgrade and such, that your guy is the ultimate, fighting machine. I didn't get to see one of the things I'm most curious about in Valhalla, which is the settlement you'll return to over the course of the game, upgrading with the riches acquired through conquest. I'm a sucker for a base building minigame, and I also love the idea of having my own squad of Vikings that I can call on to raid towns across England. Finding new loot to make incremental upgrades to my own character bores me after a while, but upgrading my followers and leading them into battle, that I can get into. Now, like I said, guys, I think that, from a graphical standpoint, what we've seen so far, now from the trailers at least, the graphics are incredible. They look like they're going to be so good on, like on the next-gen consoles. However, the gameplay is a little bit different. Now, it doesn't look quite as good as it does, obviously, from the trailers, but there looks like there's a, obviously the game's not done yet, so we got to kind of wait till the game comes out, but there is a definite, you can tell that it looks like they're trying to take some things out of The Witcher, and The Witcher 3 in particular, which I certainly don't think is a bad thing. This does feel like it has its own flavor on things, which I like a lot, and it looks like hopefully there's a good amount of stuff to do within this open world. And for what we've seen so far about the map, guys, the map looks relatively large, and only a portion of it was able to be accessible to these, streamers and content creators and reviewers out there for Assassin's Creed as far as the demo is concerned. So that gets me pretty excited. The bits of Valhalla I spent most of my time with made it plain Ubisoft has taken a lot of inspiration from The Witcher 3, building decisions into the main story quests that help you define what kind of character Eivor is. Before I lead my troops into battle, do I fire them up with promises of vengeance or tell them we fight for ourselves? If I show another Viking mercy after defeating him in a one-on-one boss fight, how will that come into play later? I only played a couple of story missions, but I loved female Eivor's voice acting and the little bits of the larger story I was able to pick up on. This isn't going to simply be a tale of the invading Vikings versus Saxons, because I rescued a Saxon king who is marrying another Viking. So, with that, where Valhalla falls short of The Witcher, at least from the limited bit I played, is in its side quests. I only ran into a couple, but they were very short. In one, I helped a kid find a cat. In another, I helped a kid recover a horse from the other side of a river. They were 2-minute diversions, not the rich, unpredictable quests that rooted Geralt in his world so effectively. So, look, what I will say about that is this. The side quests, I do hope that they're a little bit more in-depth for sure. One thing that I will say, guys, that really bothered me about Origins as well as Odyssey in the Assassin's Creed universe, of course, the past couple of entries here, was that you were forced to do side quests in order to move forward with the main story, similar to that of Far Cry 5, which really bothered me. I like going at, side quests at my own pace. So that's the only thing that I'm hoping they change here, that these are, side quests, but you don't have to do them. I understand the concept. They want you to play the entire game in its totality, but I like to be able to kind of go at the story and such at my own pace, because if you're really getting into the story and then you're forced to do side quests, it takes you out of that main story to do side quests. Whereas I want to just kind of do the whole story sometimes, do side quests along the way, and then after I beat the game, you go through it again, and then you can do all the side quests and such. So that is something that I really hope that they end up doing here. Valhalla retains classic Assassin's Creed's climbing and stealth, but I found myself thrust into combat or picking off enemies with a bow far more than going in for assassinations. The stealth feels like a holdover from a different game, but Valhalla's combat having more stuff in it than Origins or Odyssey doesn't necessarily make it more engaging over the long term either. I wrote a separate article about Valhalla's combat design and how its stealth fits in. And if Valhalla's story is great and its side quests are better than the ones I encountered, then even a decent combat system will be good enough. The Witcher 3's combat was easily its weakest element after all. I'd gladly put up with an evolution of Odyssey if this giant open world lives up to its potential as a vessel for great storytelling. With a few months to go, Valhalla clearly needs to have some polish, which I agree to. From what I saw, guys, definitely needs some polish, and I'm sure it will. This game's not coming out until later this year, and we'll just kind of have to wait and see. I'm really hoping that we still are, there's a lot of stealth elements to this game. I hope they just balance it out, right? I just felt that Odyssey and Origins went in this direction of just straight up action with rarely ever stealth elements to them, which is what made Assassin's Creed in the past so great and what has really built this fan base. I'm just hoping that they kind of go ahead and they bring it back to that. And we even saw in that reveal in the trailer that we got, it even put on the screen stealth. So there's obviously an emphasis on stealth, which is very exciting. Combat is responsive, but AI characters tend to move with the same old stilted animations, which stand out more and more as games become more detailed. And though the environment looks beautiful, nothing in Valhalla really blew me away. From my memory, it looks comparable to Witcher 3, which came out in 2015. The big draw of the last two Assassin's Creed has been exploring a particular historical setting at a fidelity we've never seen before. They both also played off mythology better than the older games in the series. I barely got to see that in Valhalla, but I know it's lying in wait in the full game. By the end of Odyssey and Origins, you were hunting down and battling the likes of the Sphinx and Cyclops and Anubis. I'll accept some open world bloat if I eventually get to throw down with Odin or tame Fenrir and ride him into battle. So here's what I'll say, guys. There's a lot of things to be excited about here with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, in my personal opinion. However, there are things to be concerned about, that being that this is just going to be more of the same. What I will say is this. They have made an effort, as far as from just the trailer perspectives, of trying to kind of show us that the assassins are certainly still a part of this. Because another reason what has kind of disconnected me, as well as a number of other fans of the franchise, out of the franchise for a period of time, is that they have kind of gone away from the Assassin's Creed. It's been more, about like the Vikings and other, and some of these other, time periods, but really no relation much so to Assassin's Creed and to the Assassins. They obviously showed us one of the Assassins in one of the first reveal trailer, I believe it was, for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and then we saw him use the hidden blade on that, massive soldier that he was fighting against. What I'm getting at, guys, is that they need to kind of, in my opinion, to really bring people into the series and kind of grow this fan base in a major way, is going to be to kind of tie things together more so. Like, does Assassin's Creed Valhalla have anything to do with Assassin's Creed Revelations or Assassin's Creed Black Flag or one of these other games earlier in the franchise? I think that those are ways that they can really bring this franchise together, and the story together as well. Because it just kind of feels now that these games are just kind of their separate, their own thing. They have nothing to do with the overarching, story of Assassin's Creed. This one, though, notwithstanding, we're going to have to wait and see. It looks like this will have something to do with the other Assassin's Creed games. I just hope that we get back to that kind of feel, guys, because this is one of my favorite franchises, and I want to see nothing but the success of it. The other thing that kind of was a bummer for me, guys, is that we didn't really see any multiplayer elements to Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and I've stated in the past that I would love to see a return of multiplayer in Assassin's Creed, as well as some co-op elements that you can play with your friends and such, because after you beat the game once or twice, the campaign that is, a lot of times you'll just move on to another game and wait for DLC to come out and things of that nature. They need to have other ways in which we can connect with this franchise after you beat the main game. But with that, guys, this is everything we know so far about Assassin's Creed Valhalla after and following Ubisoft Forward. Let me know, though, what do you guys think about Assassin's Creed Valhalla now that we're getting a little bit more in-depth? We've seen our first, segment of gameplay. What do you guys think about it? Let me know in the comment section down below. And for more Assassin's Creed Valhalla content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. Hyperscape is now in open beta, guys, so PC players around the world can now drop into Hyperscape and start playing the game, and which is absolutely awesome. Unfortunately, it's not for those of you or us that play on consoles as of yet. It's supposed to release later this summer for those of us that are playing on consoles. But with that, guys, at Ubisoft Forward, we got the announcement of the open beta coming, and for Hyperscape. And what I got to say is that overall, guys, this is a very exciting game. In my opinion, a very different kind of take on BR, in my personal opinion. But, one thing I wanted to talk about in this segment of the show is the possibility of Hyperscape adding a campaign. Now, we've talked about this before, about how we would love to see there be other game modes outside of just the BR side of Hyperscape. I think that this is like an expansive ordeal, in my personal opinion, unlike any other BR we've seen up to this point, maybe minus that of like Call of Duty. But I really feel that Hyperscape has something here, and from what we've seen, especially even like what they showed us at the Ubisoft Forward event, I feel that there's a ton of things to learn about Hyperscape and this world that they're building here, whether it's Neo Arcadia or outside of that. This leads me to wonder, will Hyperscape be bringing us a campaign at some point or another? Some kind of like story mode or some missions that you can play and learn more about Neo Arcadia or about this world just in general. It's very interesting. It seems like there's absolutely something here for like a campaign. Now, maybe they want you just to explore those things within Neo Arcadia from a Battle Royale perspective. However, it just really feels to me that this is a game that could have other game modes outside of that of the BR side of things. Could have game modes that are on different maps and such, not necessarily on Neo Arcadia, which I'm sure they're going to add other game modes on Neo Arcadia in the Battle Royale format. But I really do believe, guys, that this is a game that they've kind of really put emphasis on, you know, just really having these different animations and talks about the history and such of Neo Arcadia, unlike any other BR we've seen to date. And so it leads me to believe that we might be getting some type of campaign or maybe some, you know, different like character missions, something of that nature down the road. I don't know what all of you would think about that, but I would love to know more about this world. And I think that we could probably agree with, you know, really any of these other, you know, BRs that are out there like Fortnite, or if we're talking about Apex Legends, understanding where you are, the history around where it is that you're fighting or where you're dropping, you know, all of those things play a part in the world building and building a fan base and all of that stuff. And so I think knowing the history of it is really important. And I really think that with Hyperscape, Ubisoft has absolutely made this kind of approach that they want there to be this living, breathing type of environment, that there's so much stuff to explore or to learn about, whether you're talking by dropping into the game into Neo Arcadia, or if you're playing things outside of the BR side of things, which we have, like I said, I have no insider information. I have no idea if this is something that they're going to do, but it's certainly something that I would love to see, because I just think that this is like the first Battle Royale game. And like I said, Call of Duty Warzone and Call of Duty as a whole, of course, there's, you know, the campaign and such outside of all of that. But this is a game that there's a lot of mystery. There's a lot of question marks about, you know, where this is. Like, are we, you know, what planet are we on here? Is this a, you know, are we on Earth? Is it, you know, it's obviously very futuristic. I believe it was, I forget which year it was, 2054 or something like that. And we're in this, you know, this futuristic, you know, near future world. And I would love to see and learn more about how we got to where we are with this, you know, the game in Neo Arcadia as a whole, understanding it. But even if they decided to do it in the game, as far as from the Battle Royale perspective, that you can explore and learn more during the fight or whatever it might be, I just think like character missions or a campaign could really tell us so much more that we would love to understand about Neo Arcadia. And that just helps build the legacy. It builds the lore of and the story of these games. And I think that's really important moving forward for the Battle Royale genre. But let me know, guys, in the comment section down below, will Hyperscape add a campaign or some type of character missions at some point in the future? Let me know what you guys think. And for more Hyperscape content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. And with that being said, everyone, I hope you guys did enjoy this episode of the 8 Below Show. And if you guys did, leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, stay positive, and as always, I'll talk to you guys all in the next one. Peace.